Hey, welcome on in, guys. Tobin here with you, and thanks for checking out the channel. Happy Saturday to everybody out there. I was having a lovely Saturday. I was doing a little shopping with the kiddos today. My daughter, she's got a friend's birthday, so we were shopping at Target. And what do you know? As I'm perusing around the whatever the hell the lip balms and whatnot, boop, get a little Shams bomb to us. Shams bomb by the lip balm. And get a notification, Davion Mitchell has agreed to intends to agree to a new contract with the Miami Heat. 2 years, $24 million, no options, fully guaranteed. The man they call Off Night is getting the contract that he deserves. I got to tell you, it's always the first reaction when this thing happens. And we talked about this in the lead up to it. We know that he signed the Heat offer, the qualifying offer, 8.7. He gets a bump from that. I think he made about 6 last year, so doubles about his salary of what he made last year. This was always an interesting question with Davion Mitchell. Like, hey, what was the number going to be? What was he going to get? What was going to keep him here? What was the market going to be like? Could this be something shorter term and then, back, a la Caleb Martin? And it was kind of like all in between that. I got to be honest with you. If you look at this deal and you have any qualms about it, if you have any issues about it, I don't know what to tell you. This, to me, seems like an absolute smoking home run for the Miami Heat. Davion Mitchell has earned that money. I think that he put on a great display last year for the Miami Heat. Not too rich for anyone's blood. They didn't have to even go crazy about it. He gets to stick around. I just think that, this is one of those things where, this doesn't even feel like there's any debate, rhyme, reason, or angle to take on it, because it's so in the sweet spot. It's right there in the realm of, this isn't a 4-year deal that he's locked into. This isn't a deal that has some astronomical number. Even if it was 15, I was like, I could kind of see that where it's going to go. But it's almost like, I don't know, I see the deal immediately from Shams Charania. I was like, damn, kind of feels like the perfect value right there for Davion Mitchell. And you think about what kind of impact this guy makes on both sides of the floor. His offense for the Miami Heat was really impressive last year. His shot making was really impressive for Miami. He was great in the play-in games, obviously. And then you love the tenacity that he brings on defense. And the other thing about it is when you have a contract like this, it doesn't feel like there's going to be this inordinate pressure to continue starting him, a la having the contract like a Terry Rozier has, where Terry's making 26 plus million, and you're like, hey, that kind of feels like you got it. People always say, hey, it doesn't matter, but it does. Let's be real about it. When you're paying somebody that much money in a salary cap sport, there is an inordinate amount of pressure to play somebody or give them as many chances as possible to go out there and try and work things out. And with Davion, this is one of those where it's just like, man, he just is going to be in this. Yeah, he's definitely going to start the year, I would imagine. But if they get to a point where, let's say Yakachonis comes in and he blows up, I'm going to do another thing on the whole rookie minutes, because I've been curious about diving into to Spo's use of young rookies. And for people who think that he's going to start, I'm getting some people asking, oh, do you think he's going to start on the bat? I would be. And I mean this respect, I would be stunned if that happens. That just it doesn't seem likely. Now, does that mean he's not going to have a role right off that? Not necessarily. There have been some outliers who have been able to do it for the Miami Heat. But let's just say that day comes next year and he becomes the starting point guard for your Miami Heat, and Davion Mitchell is still there. It's not like you're putting a $12 million contract on the bench and you're really sweating it. You're like, nah, that's less than Duncan Robinson makes. That's it's a few million over what Kyle Anderson makes. It just, I don't know. It just seemed to me like the Heat came to terms with Davion Mitchell on just a slam dunk, not to get all basketball punny on you, but it just feels like they absolutely knocked this one out of the park, because he was a guy who I think really dug being here. I think he likes the environment of Miami. It was very clear from the start of summer. Everything was around the Heat. Everything was in the Heat facility. You saw the viral picture of him going out. He wanted a Heat culture jersey. I don't know if you guys saw that. I guess that was that from the Heat TikTok who broke that. There was or YouTube short. I think it was. He was signing something at Heat camp. I think the Heat produced it, and he was explaining how he was asking one of the people from the Heat. He's like, "Hey, can I get a Heat Culture Davion Mitchell jersey?" And he was going to get his food and just threw it on, and it just happened to be that some guy caught him in the jersey, but. Even still, like, that's just such a cool thing. It's like, hey, this guy, he's so about being on the Heat. He's such a hoops junkie, carrying the basketball around. So you feel good for somebody like that. He tweeted out after all this news broke from Shams Charania, just a kid from the Ville, from Hinesville, Georgia. And very good for him. Udonis has him with some fire emojis on Instagram for him. Saw Victor Oladipo giving some love to him. Some De'Aaron Fox, obviously some hours are to unfold later on, so I'm sure he'll get more love from his Heat teammates as well. But hard not to feel great for the guy and feel like, yeah, this is a person that anybody can root for having on his team. How good he is, just taking on that defensive assignment, having somebody like him next to Tyler Hero, who's not the strongest defensive player in the world. It doesn't feel like somebody, like, you're never going to look at a Davion Mitchell and be like, man, I can't have this guy on the floor. And that's even if there is some kind of like coming back to earth with the shooting. 'Cause yes, the shooting was way off the standard where he was last year. But man, you almost feel like you come into a situation like that and, we see like Andrew Wiggins, right? Like had the injuries, some games where maybe it seemed like he was pressed and didn't feel comfortable. Davion never felt like that. And I'm curious to see now that he'll have a little bit more comfort of being established, being on a multi-year deal. Will there even be more inclination on him to like take the reins on certain things? So, and just like so damn good at like being able to draw fouls on people who try and screen him. He's so good at getting those guys caught up and getting called on it for offensive fouls. He's like an absolute maestro at that. And then you think about all the great guard play that there is in this league. You need somebody like a Davion Mitchell. So slam dunk for him. The last thing that the Heat now have to figure out is, well, not the last thing, but the next thing that they have to figure out is where things stand with Duncan Robinson, because this, now is the question of like, all right, where are the Heat going to be at the luxury tax? If he were to come back fully, with his $20 million, then I think there some maneuvering that they have to be at. So they would be about $8 million over if they were to have Duncan Robinson back at his full number. Now, the way that it works, I guess Duncan Robinson has until tomorrow to decide whether or not he is going to early terminate his contract, which is for $19.9 this year. However, only about $10 million of that is guaranteed. So if he has a deal that we're unaware of, and there's not a lot of cap space out there, but if he has a deal that the Heater, he wants to go get a fresh start somewhere because he's just tired of the Miami Heat, whatever, he could just say, adios, I'm out of here. The other situation he could do, he could opt out. He could restructure a deal with the Miami Heat. He could do it at, let's say he wanted to stick around Miami. He likes Miami. He wants a multi-year deal at, 3 years, 30. And he gets that guaranteed, but it's at the number that he would have made anyway, because he's going to have, if he does opt into his contract or doesn't bypass the early termination, at the very least, he's making 10. The Heat could also trade him at that $20 million, and he could be getting that fully guaranteed once he gets past, I think, July 8th. So there's going to be some keys to unlock there to figure out where the contract's going to go, where it seems. This is from Anthony Chang of the Miami Herald. He says, if Robinson bypassed the early termination as expected, the Heat would have until July 8th to decide whether or not to fully guarantee his contract. It says the current... if Robinson bypassed the early termination option guaranteed chunk of his salary for next season, he'd become the 15th player on the list. Should Robinson skip the early termination and for the Heat fully guarantees his 19.9, the Heat would be about $193.7 million in salary, when adding the $2.5 million unlikely bonuses for Tyler Hero. The Heat would have about $196 million in salaries. The luxury tax line being $187. So, they would have to obviously figure that out. So the Heat could free up the $10 million by just waiving them, and then essentially they would be under the luxury tax line. So this could be a case where they get nothing for Duncan Robinson, and then again he would be a free agent, but he would just get the $10 million guaranteed for the year, and then he could go sign for somewhere else for $10 million. So there's that scenario too. We really don't know if Duncan Robinson is going to be back for the Miami Heat this upcoming season, but very, very good news. It was an interesting thing also from Anthony's article on the Jonathan Kuminga front. I just wanted to mention this because there has been, and I've told you this over the last couple of days, like with the Jonathan Kuminga noise, it just to me, it feels a little too loud for me to be like, to be in the mix of how the Heat would operate with something like that. And they just kind of feel like the only team that's out there. And Anthony has a report in here. And it says, among the outside free agents who have been linked to the Heat by multiple reports is Golden State Warriors forward Jonathan Kuminga, who will be a restricted free agent this summer. The Heat has some level of interest in Kuminga, but is currently exploring other potential moves, according to a league source. And then says there is no free agent meeting set between the Heat and Kuminga yet. So, look, it's not like there's no interest, but like, man, people are going very, very hot and heavy with this. And I was like, this feels very, it smells, if you smell you taste the air a little bit, it tastes very agent-y, what's up there. So Anthony lets you know that, yeah, maybe there's some interest from the Heat, but I don't think the Heat are sitting here like, oh, that's the move that we're going into this offseason. I could honestly see the Heat like, look, Pat Riley's up there ribbiting like a frog. I could honestly see the Miami Heat being like, hey, let's get weird. It does feel like they are trying to move off the Wiggins stuff. There's still some more fodder on that. Who knows where it ends up? I know there was a report today in ESPN that Wiggins was that they don't think that the Wiggins-Lakers stuff is very close because Gabe Vincent and his representation, and there's somebody else, hadn't been notified, or Connect, I think was the other one, hadn't been notified about anything being close. I could also see like are the Lakers going to be super, like, who don't have a ton of draft capital? Are they going to, if the Heat are trying to squeeze them for a pick, will it? I mean, how likely is that the Lakers would relent on giving a pick unless they just are like, hey, we're going all in on LeBron's last or second to last season, and then we got to impress Luka Doncic because of his extension, unless they feel that kind of pressure. And the Heat may feel like they feel that kind of pressure, and that's why they're in the negotiations with that. But even if the Heat lose Andrew Wiggins, I just don't see the Heat getting, like, I don't know. It would seem surprising to me unless they are in love and with Kuminga, which I don't know. Because I would have felt like they would have pressed harder for it at the trade deadline. And also, I just don't know. Like, I don't know. It feels very much like if you're doing that, let's take it back to the Davion deal, right? Like, you signed a Davion Mitchell to 2 years, $12 million a year, right? There's no sense of pressure. Now we go to a Jonathan Kuminga deal. You're going to pay Jonathan Kuminga anywhere from $20 to $30 million a year. Like, that says something about what you're going to believe in him as, and you have no real idea or no feel for it. If it would have been a Davion Mitchell situation where they would have had him come in, okay, then it would have made a little bit more sense to me that the Heat would be in this Mitchell situation where, like, all right, we feel comfortable about paying this guy. The fact that you would have to get into a sign and trade then, and what do they want? What do you have to match that? Makes it a little bit odd. So I don't know what to make of it. I'm not ruling anything out. I'm just saying, like, all of the smoke around Jonathan Kuminga and the Heat has felt a little manufactured. A little bit manufactured. Or overstatement, I guess is the way you should put it. But, some reporting there from Anthony on the details of that and where things stand potentially with this whole thing. But Davion Mitchell gets his 2-year deal, much deserved, well deserved. Congratulations to Off Night, an absolute dog on the Miami Heat. Excited about this one. I really don't know what the other side of this would be. I mean, like, I feel like you'd have to be a real rat bastard to hate this. Like, even the most skeptical, upset, tired of the status quo Heat fan, I don't think could be have anything negative to say about bringing Davion Mitchell back at this number. It seems like an absolute home run for both sides, and so great to see that deal gets done and doesn't get dragged into restricted free agency.